Over the past several years, I have talked to hundreds of people about trying to find their ideal hometown. And I've noticed a lot of similarities between all the different people that I've spoken to. Lots of people want very similar things in a hometown. And then for some reason, it just recently occurred to me that there are people in this world whose job it is to create wonderful spaces and wonderful hometowns that people love to live in. And I thought to myself, okay, I really have to talk to some of these people. And so I invited Michael Clark, the town planner of Zebulon, onto my show. And he is here today joining us to talk about what it is that makes an ideal hometown. We're going to be talking a little bit about Zebulon and what's happening there, and then just generally what it is that people love in a hometown and what goes into the planning of a town. So let me go ahead and welcome Michael to the show. Timothy, okay, there we go. Hey, Michael. So thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
Thank you, Ellen. I'm doing terrific. I'm really excited to be here tonight.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a fun conversation. Okay, why don't we start by talking about where you grew up? Was there anything that you loved about your own hometown that has influenced you going into the planning business?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up in a small town in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. It was around 20,000 residents. It was that type of place where everybody knew everybody. We'd gather on Main Street for Christmas events. Families would play baseball in the parks. And it was the type of community where there was a lot of interaction between neighbors, kids walking to the corner store, everybody showing up at the Friday night football games. And it really created a sense of place. And as I began my career, I started really looking back into the elements that provided such a wonderful childhood and really tried to help other communities achieve those same results.
Wow, that sounds really idyllic, honestly. Do you think that a town of 20,000 people, do you think it's possible to keep that kind of small town community as a town grows?
It's really dependent upon how that growth occurs. There's a subject called smart growth. And within the town of Zebulon, everything we do is fostered on three core principles: maintaining that small town life, establishing a vibrant downtown, and then growing smart. And a lot of that is incorporating these smart growth principles. These are principles that are not anything new, but for some reason started become forgotten as towns start really growing rapidly. It's creating neighborhoods that are walkable, creating these mixed use environments with small corner shops, having opportunities to go to parks and events and activities, and going beyond just the cookie cutter approach, but really creating a sense of place on where people want to be.
So it sounds kind of like, there have been these massive subdivisions that have, over the last 50 years, I mean, just subdivisions that kind of take over without a lot of thought into places near those subdivisions that kind of allow people to have these other places outside of their homes. Is this the third place idea? Is that kind of what we are talking about with
Yeah,
that sense of place? Can you
yeah,
talk about the idea of third place for a minute?
Yeah, the third place. There's been several studies in a book called The Great Good Place that was read, where it really looked at where people are. The first place is always the home. It's where one resides. The second place is your work environment. It's where you go, typically an 8 to 5 job, where you have your friends and associates at work. It's that third place that really helps to create that sense of community. One of the best examples is the show Cheers for those audience my age and older, where you walk in and everybody knows your name. There's other books, Bowling Alone as an example, the bowling alleys and the civic organizations like the Elks, the Moose, the Lodge. A lot of those were the third place. Today, those third places are becoming less and less, but the need for them is becoming much, much greater. Whether it's the coffee shop in downtown or the local sports bar, or even like certain barber shops, as an example. All of those are great examples of a modern context of a third place.
Yeah, so how does the town, I mean, the town kind of really just creates the spaces, but it's really the people that have to create those third places because it's about the people that are there, right? How,
Yeah,
how,
absolutely.
how do you
Um,
kind of navigate that, like getting, do people just kind of step up once there's a location where they can do it, once there's the, commercial spots that are kind of close to the housing and that sort of thing?
A little bit of that. One of the most biggest misconceptions is that towns will uh, develop these places, and unfortunately, that's not often the case. What
Hmm.
it is for towns such as Zebulon, we're transitioning from a deal-making community into a plan-making community where we create a vision of this is what it will be, this is how it can work. That's done through our comprehensive land use plan where we provide the direction, the guidance, and then we establish the regulations. Those are in our unified development ordinance. Then we work with development partners to make that a reality. The town doesn't have endless bank accounts to be able to bring in all these new buildings. So we need to work constructively and collaboratively with that development community. Part of that is making sure that while it's still profitable for the development, we look at the holistic approach to make sure that's a good fit in a good location for not only the citizens that are here today, but also the citizens that are going to be coming in the future.
Yeah. So, how do you keep the balance between too much housing, like having too much housing to the number of businesses? Is there like a ratio that's kind of understood? Like, if you have this many houses kind of close by, you need, these particular shops. And what kinds of shops are those, if there
It,
is something like that?
there is. With the tax base, those ratios are where those come into place. If you can get close to a 50-50, that's a pretty safe perspective where you
Wow.
want to have 50% non-residential and 50% residential. Part of that is not only where, in terms of the tax incomes and places to go, but it's also the employment for those who live here. Having the opportunity to work close to where you live as well as having those shopping opportunities, those eating opportunities, that really creates that holistic picture. The closer we can get through to that, the more achievable that goal is. The other element in terms of how we help kind of guide that is through our zoning districts. Inside of our unified development ordinance, we have essentially a map that's full of all the different colors that correspond to different land uses and different development characteristics, whether it's large lot residential developments or apartments or downtown mixed use districts or just your more traditional commercial districts. We make sure that we have a good balance based on the needs of the town. For a long time, the town actually had kind of the a very offset approach where we had way more non-residential tax base than residential.
Hmm.
It's only in the past 7 or 8 years that we've started seeing that residential base really grow. In 2019, when I started with the town, we issued only 74 certificate of occupancies. That's the final step for a family to be able to move into a house.
Wow.
Last year, we issued 372. So that growth is growing, and we're just about to break 10,000 residents here within the next couple of weeks.
Amazing. So, issuing those occupancy permits, are you struggling to keep up with like water and sewer and some of those things?
Um, Fortunately, we have plenty of water and sewer allocation. Much like a lot of the other communities on this side of the triangle, we work with the city of Raleigh. They own the
Ah,
actual infrastructure, the pipes, the water pumps, everything else, while we own the volume that one can consume. We were our elected officials. We went into that contract. They were very forward thinking and made sure to reserve enough capacity for that long-term growth. So I was very, very pleased to see that occur.
yeah,
When
that's
all this
great.
new development comes in, however, it's the developer's responsibility to construct that infrastructure. That
Hmm.
way, we're not tapping into taxpayer dollars, but really offsetting the cost onto the development community. Going back to, we need to partner with quality developers to make sure that we get the town that we all desire.
Yeah. For those of you who are just joining, Michael Clark is a town planner at the town of Zebulon. Before that, he was a town planner at the town of Apex and the town of Nightdale. So he's got tons of experience in this area. If you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments and we will get to them as we can. Okay, Michael, another question I had for you. Have you traveled around to other countries and other areas throughout the country to kind of study different towns and cities and the way they grow in order to influence what's happening here in North Carolina and in Zebulon?
Yeah, and actually, part of my history was I started my career working for a community in in Reading, Pennsylvania,
Mm.
and then moved back to Michigan for several years. And one of the things that planners love to do is we love to travel, and so I've been able to visit most of the areas up and down the East Coast and throughout the Midwest, as well as several other locations in North America. And my family, it drives them crazy because we'll go on vacation and I'll be pointing out, this is a great idea. This is a great idea. My kids are about to mutiny every time we're walking through a historic district because I'm taking notes and they're like, Dad, come on. But it's finding the best practices and trying to think, okay, is that something that we can incorporate here in the town of Zebulon?
Yeah. What are some of your favorite places that you've visited that you would love to like just create something similar?
Every community has something different. Before we moved to North Carolina, I was the planning director in Saugatuck, Michigan, and they have such a charming, quaint downtown that has just an incredible excitement about it. We lived in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and their historic districts are just phenomenal. Last fall, my wife and I went on a trip for our anniversary to Savannah and walking around the all the different squares in the parks and seeing how the town was laid out. I've spent a lot of time in Philadelphia and Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and seeing how they're able to accommodate mixed use, not just on a high rise scale, but on small, compact areas. Also, some of the communities, the small communities in Ohio, Wisconsin, where it's a lot like Zebulon, where it's still small and compact, but they've already seen a lot of that growth occur, and it's been managed effectively, where they still have that combination of agricultural farmland and a very urbanized style downtown, but all the buildings are only 3, maybe 4 stories high. So it still has that small town feel while still having a population of 50,000.
Okay, so they're definitely not pushing the high rises. They're kind of
No.
keeping things. So it's interesting because Holly Springs on our side is definitely kind of pushing more urban. We live in Holly Springs, and it definitely has a feel of kind of pushing the more urban feel, and not necessarily wanting to stay small town. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, but that's kind of the feel. So can you speak to that a little bit? Like you've been in Nightdale, you've been in Apex, and now you're in Zebulon. What's the difference between those towns and where they're wanting to go? Do they have different like desires in where they're headed?
Yeah, absolutely. Every one of those communities, first and foremost, I'm friends with all those planning directors as well, and worked with the planning director for Holly Springs for a while when I was over in Nightdale. And the guidance and the vision is really set forth by the community. That is translated into the future land use plan. And every future land use plan for those 3 communities is distinctively different and tailored specifically to their needs. While right now, one of our foundational elements is maintaining that small town life. In Nightdale, they're looking to have more mixed use neighborhoods, kind of that more urbanized feel. They're also trying to build a new downtown. In some ways, Nightdale is a lot like Cary, where they didn't have that traditional historic downtown feel. Apex has an incredible downtown that it was fortunate that instead of when the recession happened, it kind of protected a lot of the buildings in downtown, prevented them from being redeveloped.
Hmm.
They've really been able to capitalize on their small town character overlay district to preserve the residential character around the downtown while creating options for higher density, more modern development around the ring outside of that on the other side of 540. Holly Springs had a combination of all 3 of them, where they had historic elements. They're creating the new downtown and around the town hall. So it's all based on what is available, and more so is what are the desires and the needs of the citizens.
So you said a moment ago that Nightdale is more looking at mixed use and adding that kind of stuff, and Zebulon is more interested in preserving the small town feel. practically speaking, like specific elements of the town, how is that different? Like, how would that look different in Zebulon than it would in Nightdale?
Well, in Zebulon, we too are looking for that mixed use element.
Okay.
Mixed use doesn't necessarily have to be all within one building. Thinking back to the way communities were built before World War II and definitely before World War One, where the automobile wasn't the primary motive of transportation. You had those corner stores, you had that walkability, that vibrant or that pedestrian vibrancy. That's kind of the direction that the town of Zebulon is looking to go. Nightdale's looking for that, as well as the mixed use within the buildings themselves.
Okay.
One of the things that's in their unified development ordinance is really encouraging for apartment complex, having that first floor retail and then those residential units above.
I love it when they do that. I think that's really nice. Okay. Do you think obviously different people kind of gravitate towards different types of towns? How can a person like know if the town is a good fit for them and like know where a town is going, so that they know if it's something that would be a good fit? That might be too vague of a question, but I don't know. Do your best.
No, it's actually a phenomenal question. First and foremost is don't just drive around the town. Get out of your car, walk around downtown, buy a coffee in the local coffee shop, strike up conversations with those who live there, and think long term. Is this a place that you see, if you're a younger couple, is this a place that you see raising your kids? Is this a place that you see going to the local park to do prom pictures? Is this a place that you see finding employment opportunities nearby? Because that's also part of the characteristics too. Is this going to be a long commute, or am I going to be able to find a job nearby? As well as really looking at the housing stock. Not only is it what you need now, but as you age, do they have the housing availability for you in terms of single story or first floor master bedroom homes? Do they have neighborhoods that have the smaller lot sizes that would be easier to maintain? The other is take a look at to see how other people are interacting with the built environment. Is it a place that has that vibrancy? Are people walking up and down the sidewalks? Are kids running around at the end of cul-de-sacs and playing, or running up and down the sidewalks, or getting together at the local parks? Because the greater sense of vibrancy, the more it's going to go back to that idyllic concept of what a small town is. On the other hand, if it's more of an urban environment that you want, once again, get out of your car, put your car in a parking garage and walk around. Once again, if you drink coffee, get a coffee from the local coffee shop and just try to envision what will be my life be like in 5, 10, 15 years in this particular location. As planners, we realize that there is no one place that is perfect for everybody.
Right.
But we try to do our best to make as many options to accommodate everybody who wants to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So what Holly Springs and Clayton have done an incredible job of attracting these life sciences companies and kind of developing real employment centers outside of your RTP and your downtown Raleigh and all of that in their individual towns. Is Zebulon kind of looking that direction and wanting to do that kind of like economic development, or are you more of a bedroom community?
No, we're definitely not a bedroom community. And even still to this day, our non-residential tax base exceeds our residential tax base. We have several major manufacturers. We have GSK, the pharmaceutical company, right next door to Town Hall here.
Okay.
Nemeco, which is a foam extrusion company. You think of probably one of the more common products is the pool noodle, but they also do pipe insulation and the corner trim, as well as they're expanding into foam core panels with a product that they call Herculean. We have the Devil Dog jeans. They're made here in Zebulon.
Oh, cool.
We have
Did they have an actual storefront where they sell their jeans, or do they just manufacture them there?
at the moment they just manufacture them there, but they are looking at options to put in an actual storefront, and it's a phenomenal old building, has an Art Deco feel to it, and has the historic neon sign above it. Driving back from or driving past it on my way out to Five County Stadium to catch a Mudcats game and seeing that sign lit up, it's absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, cool.
But to answer your question with economic development, that is one of the things that we've pivoted recently and shifted gears. This past spring, the town hired its first full-time economic development specialist, Ms. Shannon Johnson. And part of her goal is to best understand where the town is positioned to attract corporations, be it life sciences or something else. And we're about to engage in an economic strategic plan where we're looking to partner with a consultant that helping engage the community, get that necessary public input to figure out, okay, what are we best positioned to play an arena? And if we want to go after the biogens and the Fuji Diosafe, what do we need to change to be able to start attracting those type of communities?
Yeah.
But we're very, very early in those beginning stages, but it's something that we're very excited about because the opportunities here in Zebulon, especially being that we're centrally located between Raleigh, Rocky Mount, and Wilson, it's a very attractive location.
And there's another mega site kind of out towards Rocky Mount, isn't there? If I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah.
Can you tell me off the top of your head what their focus is in that mega site?
I believe it has to do with the either the auto manufacturing or auto batteries. I don't recall the specifics of that.
Okay, gotcha.
The acreage was way too large for what we were able to accommodate.
Okay, so here's a fun question. Tell me the features of the town that are most popular, that most people are really excited about, and tell me the features that tend to be controversial. Like some people want them, but other people don't, and they're kind of hard to like balance that line.
The features that I think most people are excited about, outside of our phenomenally historic town hall, which it's probably the gem of the community, is our downtown. Just a few years ago, we had boarded up buildings, signs falling off of buildings, and suddenly the downtown has become alive. We have Old Raleigh Distillery. We have the Fall Line, which is a sports bar. We're about to get a restaurant. It's going to be a second location that Norris Brewing is putting in called the Longhouse. We have the Creative Cup coffee shop in downtown. We just got a manufacturer that builds, repairs, and teaches people how to play the bagpipes. It's only one of 3 locations in North America that does that. We have so many opportunities for other businesses that are going to be coming into our downtown, including there's several businesses that are looking into going into the former Whitley Galleries facility.
Oh yeah.
And as these new,
can you share what any of those are? Potentials?
The one that I can share is it's actually a print shop. They do like custom binded print books, kind of like the old photo books.
Oh, cool.
And part of it is a couple of years ago, we changed one of our regulations to really allow for those artisan type opportunities. So one of the reasons that we have the bagpipes in downtown is to create that sense of place, that experiential retail, where it's not just about going and buying something, but it's the experience that one has as they're buying it.
Yeah, we actually interviewed the bagpipe guy when we were doing a tour of Zebulon, not I guess a few months ago or whatever, and I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was very cool, just to be able to. We toured his shop and he was able to show us like how he made the bagpipes and stuff. I just thought it was amazing. So what regulations were there that were preventing? So here, let me back up a little bit. So Holly Springs had some kind of a regulation. I think it was no tobacco in town limits, and somebody wanted to open a cigar bar, and they ended up not being able to open it because they weren't allowed. I think it was the tobacco rule or whatever. So I'm curious, like, what kind of regulation was that prevented the artistic companies from coming in, and like, how has that changed?
Yeah, the regulations before that were really geared more towards just the strict retail and restaurants. And
Okay.
while those are very, very important in a downtown because they create that sense of that the third place that we talked about earlier, um, we need to start thinking beyond that. As we're redeveloping our town, we and our population can only accommodate so many gift shops and restaurants.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we had to do is kind of think outside the box. And there's a book called Recast Your City that really kind of laid out the not only the concepts behind it, but the numbers behind it in terms of square footage of retail based on your population and all the different options. It went into the experiences that one has in these downtowns. And while theirs was more towards that small scale, almost industrial type concepts, we scaled that just a little bit back further to more of those artisan studio market type opportunities, where it's not going to be something that's going to be loud and obnoxious, even bagpipes, but it's not going to have an adverse impact on the adjacent residential or
Mm.
commercial uses. We wanted something that would still maintain that small town charm, but create a flair that you might not see elsewhere.
Yeah. One thing I think that's missing from a lot of places around here is some place for teenagers to go and hang out.
Mhm,
When I was a kid, we had the mall that we would go to,
mhm.
and there was a church that opened a teen center in one of the kind of mall stores. And they put pool tables in there and big comfy couches, and they would watch, have movie showings or whatever. And it was the coolest thing because we could just go and hang out, and it was safe, and it was just fantastic. And I have teenagers. My last one is in 10th grade, so we don't have much longer with teenagers. But I think that's really something that's missing. Is that something that people are aware, that planners are aware of?
Absolutely. And once again, it goes down to those regulations and making sure that we have regulations in place to help to attract those locations. Um, I it's still very early stages, but we do have a business owner that is looking at a former warehouse site that is going to potentially bring in something that during the early part of the day will address that exact thing, where I'll have that recreational element. And this is going to be located downtown, which makes it even
Mm.
more exciting. That recreational element, and it's going to be geared towards the younger populations, and then in the evening it'll be geared towards the older adult populations.
That
Um,
sounds cool.
we also, our Sheila Long, our Parks and Recreation Director, is doing a really terrific job kind of refiguring out how to best program our community center. Well, right now it's geared strictly towards kind of a limited activity recreation center where we can only accommodate a few uses at a time. We have pickup basketball and different activities and events. We're really looking at how do we reprogram that particular site to make it all encompassing to address combination of the athletic programs that everybody wants to do, as well as some of those other programs, whether it's game nights or those pool
Mm.
tables, something to create that sense of place for the teenage population to go to.
Yeah, that's really
It's also
important.
something our elected officials are very aware of. So they're too helping to find opportunities for folks.
Awesome. Okay. What comes first, the population or the roads? I know that's a heated question.
Yeah. In a perfect world, it would be the roads, but we don't live in the perfect world. So unfortunately, it's the opposite.
Yeah.
Uh, and especially in North Carolina, it's a little unique here that there's only state roads and local roads and then private roads. In a lot of other places, you also have that county road in it, kind of in between. That's not something that we've had in North Carolina since the 1930s. NCDOT ended up taking over a lot of the county roads. So NCDOT has limited funds and resources to expand these roads. For growing communities, such as those that are in the triangle, a lot of the communities will offset those development improvements onto the developers. We have what's called a transportation impact assessment that's being done with all these new programs or projects, where they go and they look at figuring out, okay, how is my development going to affect the road network? Is it going to increase the weights at the traffic signals? Is it going to create unsafe traffic movements at intersections? And then part of their responsibility is to make changes to those particular intersections, those segments, to help make it safe. Those studies only go so far out from those projects. The other is any improvements that are found in the transportation plan, which kind of like the land use plan, it's that long range vision of what the road network will have to be. The developer is responsible for building their portion of that network anywhere that it's either fronting on those properties or those roads, or if the road's going to be going through their development.
Mm.
Despite what a lot of people think, towns in Wake County don't have unlimited resources to build all these roads. So we need to really look to the development community to help assist us with those.
Well, it only makes sense because, first of all, you need money to build roads and you need the people to bring the money. And it makes sense that the developers are part of that because it's balancing as the people come, you're building the roads. It's like just in time network. You know what I mean? It just makes total sense. I happen to think the roads here are great. I know people that sometimes complain about it or whatever, but I've lived other places that make these roads look incredible. We lived in Northern Virginia and in South Florida, and I'm not complaining about any roads here for sure.
Well, I think that that comes down to the residents who live here a long time. They're accustomed to things being a particular way.
Yeah.
Change is hard for folks. We as planners, we understand that. And we try to soften the impact of that change to the greatest capacity without shutting the doors and telling other folks, no, you can't move here.
Yeah. I mean, the fact is that places are either growing or they're dying.
That's correct.
And I'd rather have them growing than dying because a dying town is a terrible place.
I've seen a lot of those too, unfortunately.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, I personally, I love the small town feel. I love a small community like that. I would live in a very small town if I could. And I probably will move to a very small town, but I think you can't like try and prevent growth. It doesn't work, and it just makes things really expensive, and it makes the town die. So I don't know. I'm all for growth. It just has to happen, you know? Okay. 25% of people who are searching for homes online right now are looking for a new city to move to. How are we dealing with that as town planners? Is that something like, as far I'm kind of thinking from the person aspect of it, like there used to be like these welcome clubs or whatever. I don't know if those things still exist, but is there any movement out there to kind of create social engagement for people that are new to the town, other than like community centers, but specifically like for new people?
Yeah, that's something that the Zebulon Chamber of Commerce is starting to establish, is kind of these welcome packages, so that when new citizens come into the town, it's kind of a list of these are the different organizations, the opportunities. Frequently, there's coupons to local businesses, and it's an opportunity for somebody to go through and learn a little bit more about the town. The other thing that the town of Zebulon is doing is we have a series of these different citizen academies for those who might be interested in understanding a little bit more of, okay, this new place that I moved into, what is it all about? Our police and fire departments have had academies to better understand their operations for a couple of years. This fall, the town of Zebulon's planning department is going to have our first citizen planning academy, and then our parks department is going to have one soon after. Eventually, the goal is to create a series of these different modules, so citizens will have the opportunity to truly understand the operations of the town, how each of the different departments works with each other in a collaborative and cooperative fashion, as well as different opportunities for them to get involved, be it if they want to maybe sit on the planning board or the board of adjustment or a parks and recreation board, or maybe even run for a town council at some point. It's a great opportunity for folks to kind of put their toe in the water to see, is this something I want to get involved in?
Yeah. Are you okay? Real quick, if y'all want to ask questions, we just got a couple more things we're going to talk about, and then we're going to be done in just a few minutes. So if you have questions, drop them in the chat now. Are you familiar with the show Gilmore Girls?
I am not. I'm
You are
sorry.
not? Okay. It's like the quintessential small town, and I was just going to reference something in there. Um, but I guess I'll just ask, are there opportunities for like volunteering for like town events and things like that? Is that fairly easy to get involved in? Because I think it's a really
Absolutely.
good way to connect, you know?
Yeah, it's a terrific way to connect. And we, uh, be it our parks department or other organizations, there are an incredible different range of different opportunities for volunteering. Uh, if somebody's interested in fire safety, our fire department has fire volunteers. Our Parks and Rec department has several different big events throughout the year, and we're always searching for volunteers to help assist with that. Our Candy Cane Lane is our Christmas event where we shut off downtown, and we have um, fake snow that's being blown in, Santa Claus at the end, carolers, Christmas tree lights, bagpipes,
Mhm.
and it's a wonderful event. But those events take a lot of effort and a lot of
Yeah, they
work.
do.
Same thing with our different sports events. We're always looking for coaches for different recreation leagues. Our Spring Fest is another. Additionally, we do have several smaller events, the Rock the Block concert series and the concert series on the front lawn here at Town Hall. Whether it's you want to participate as a vendor for like a different booth at a vendor, or just to help out the organization. If somebody's interested in doing that, definitely contact Sheila Long, our Parks and Recreation Director, and she'll be happy to provide guidance.
Awesome. Okay, last question. What's the most exciting thing that's coming soon in Zebulon to you?
Um, it's hard to pick just one.
Okay, you can say a few if you
Yeah,
want to. That's fine.
the one of the biggest exciting things is actually something that we've been working on for a while now. Um, Several years ago, we put in an application to the rural center at North Carolina Rural Center to become a Main Street community. It's a designation that really helps to supercharge the efforts to revitalize our downtown through what they call a 4-point approach. We were thrilled to find out that we were able to enter in as a downtown associate community, which is kind of the precursor. Typically, a community takes 3 to 4 years to be able to go through that. But we're excited. We've checked off all the marks, and we're working through the last little details. And we're hoping to be able to announce very soon that we'll be joining as a full North Carolina Main Street community.
That's awesome.
The others,
How many are there in North Carolina?
oh goodness, I
Rough idea. 20, 100? I mean,
I want to say that there's like 80 or 90.
okay.
They're spread out throughout the country or throughout the state, and it's part of the American Main Street Association or Main Street America Association.
And is there a
Um,
list of these somewhere where we could like,
yes,
yeah.
the Department of Commerce site for the North Carolina state, they actually are the ones that oversee it, and there's a full list of all the communities, what the program is about. Additionally, we have links on our department page. If you click on economic development or downtown, there's links on both of those pages that will bring you to the North Carolina Main Street
Okay, I
program.
have to check that out. That sounds interesting.
Yeah, it's a
Okay.
phenomenal program.
Okay, and what were your other things that you're
Uh,
excited about?
just all the different growth that's coming in. We have several projects that are in the early stages. They haven't officially submitted. Everything from grocery stores to apartment complexes to a couple really terrific neighborhoods where the developers are working very diligently to find ways to meet our regulations, to understand that we want not only neighborhoods that are good now, but it'll be good in 30 and 40 years. Those creating that sense of place.
Yeah.
There's renovations to our park system. We have greenways that are planned. Our Little River Park, we're starting to move forward with the final planning stages on that. It's going to be a phenomenal place to be. And eventually we'll have a greenway that helps connect Little River Park to Five County Stadium going through downtown. They'll have opportunities where somebody could hop on their bike in downtown after grabbing a bite to eat and ride out to the ballpark. The
So
others, I'm really excited about Fall Line coming, or not Fall Line, the Longhouse opening up in downtown. They
what's
have
that?
it's a extension of Norris Brewing out of Wake Forest.
Oh,
They're
okay.
opening a restaurant here in downtown, and they have incredible food. They're going into an old historic building, getting historic tax credits as well as facade improvement grants, and it's going to be a terrific place to be.
Awesome. That sounds great. Okay. What grocery stores are
I'm not
okay.
allowed to say yet.
Dang, I was hoping you were going to be able to. Okay. All right. Well, Michael, thank you so much for joining me this evening. This has been really awesome and really eye-opening, and I'm really excited about Zebulon. Every time I see research these towns or go visit, I'm like, I have to move to that one, and then I have to move to that one. I just love them all. They're so much fun. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope everybody enjoyed the video, and I think we'll be doing something like this again next week.
All right. Thank you,
Y'all
Ellen,
have a
for
good
everything.
evening. All right.